Hi, my name's Simon from Shoulder Cleaning Services. I'm just going to do a brief video review of the Gardener Pole Systems SLX Xtreme poles. Now, I've got the 25 foot and the 18 foot models here, and they claim to be the lightest, most rigid poles, telescopic poles on the market, and I'd have to say that I would believe that after 2 weeks of working with them on some commercial and also mainly domestic work. I found them to be very, very light, very, very rigid. And I have to say as well that they've shaved time, especially off of the larger commercial jobs. One job that normally takes us over 3 hours, we got done in about 2.5, mainly due to these poles, I believe. Now, just to explain how I think that gardeners have made these poles so light and so rigid, it's not only that they've used high modulus carbon fibre, but they've done something that I think will be a deal breaker to many people. It just depends how much you like the lightness and the rigidity. The very ends of the poles, about the top 4 or 5 inches and the bottom 4 or 5 inches of each section has got a slightly thicker diameter, but what they've actually done really is they've shaved off thickness throughout the bulk of the section. So basically you can clamp the pole at the top and you can clamp it at the bottom, but if you want to clamp it anywhere in the middle, it literally just will not clamp. There's no way that you can clamp the pole in the middle. So basically you have to use the pole in full sections. Now that's not really a problem with an 18 foot and a 25 foot pole that gardeners make, because the section's around about 4 to 5 foot anyway, so unless you're a midget it's not going to be a problem using this pole. One of the upsides of that, not only have they managed to decrease the weight by about over 30%, it works out to, on the SLX range of poles. It increases the rigidity, but also it makes extending the pole and closing the pole exceptionally quick. Because of the reduced diameter, the pole literally just flies open and flies closed. Now regarding these clamps, something that gardeners have done is they were the first to use the lateral clamping system, but also with their clamps is they are very, very small. Now some people don't like that because they feel it makes them more vulnerable. I've personally never broken one of these clamps, but the good thing about them is that you fit much more clamps in a much shorter space, which, to be honest, it reduces the overall length that the pole needs to be when closed. If you've got clamps taking up, say, a good 18 inches of the pole, which some manufacturers do, then that means that each section needs to be sort of 18 inches shorter than it could actually be. Well, they ship it with the super light Xtreme brush, and to be honest, the first time I saw this brush I thought it was a bit of a joke, because I was used to using the super light dual trim monofilament brush. Now I'm very happy with this brush. You can see it's looking a bit worn now over being used for a good 18 months or so. But funnily enough, this brush, which weighs nothing in comparison, to me I found it's got a much better cleaning power. It's shipped with the Gardener Super Light gooseneck, carbon gooseneck, which I found to be very good for the domestic work. I don't know what it would be if you was using it 40 foot or above, but for down low at 25-30 foot it was very good. I could get to the sill, clean the sill with the brush, but the brush is very, very good. Cleans very, very well. With the scraper as well, which is just the pointed top of the headstock, first I thought, well, is there any need for that? But actually it's very useful. If you've got any baked on birdsmark and the bristles don't clean it off, you just flip the brush around and that works very nice as well. They've also introduced the quick release system. You just basically pull the brush out and you can change it within another brush, and it uses basically John Guest style fittings. You just pop one hose out and then pop the other one in. That works quite nicely. This isn't the pole hose that gardeners supply, by the way. I've changed that myself. What else can I tell you about this pole? Well, the extensions fit on very easily. You can fit an extension within under a minute quite easily. The quick release clamping system works out very well as well. I've actually had a couple of customers remark to me, you know, have you got a new brush, or is that a new pole? In fact, one of the customers noted themselves how rigid the pole was, which took me back, because I've never had a customer remark on a pole that I've been using before. So all in all, I'd say that if this pole was to be stolen, I would invest in another one. It does work out that the 25 foot is better for value for money than the 18 foot, definitely. But at the same time, I'd have to say that if you want the lightest, the most rigid pole in the market, it's got to be worth going for. If you've got a health complaint, maybe a shoulder problem, then I'd say go for it. It's more expensive, but you pay what you get, don't you? Also, I did some rigidity testing with the poles. I loaded a number of poles up, a Mark 1 SLX, I loaded up an XL Hybrid, loaded up an old universal carbon glass fibre pole that I had with the same load, an old Viking oval brush. Interestingly with that, the Mark 1 SLX was the most rigid, and then this 25 foot Xtreme was just behind it, loaded up with sort of 450 gram load. But with no load, then the Xtreme was much more rigid than any pole. And if you're putting a light load on, like any super light brush, the Xtreme is more rigid by a long way. All in all, I would highly recommend these poles. With just a couple of down points, as I've mentioned, the way that the poles open up, you can't use it at half lengths, although to be honest, after 2 weeks I haven't found a situation yet where I couldn't use the pole. But that will be a deal breaker for many people. Also, the pole hose that gardeners supplied, although it works very well with cold water, I have to say that with hot water, there's a bit of pole hose still left on this 90-degree angle gooseneck. With hot water, this pole hose wouldn't actually work very well with the John Guest fittings. I found that as I extended the pole, the water was very hot. It was up to sort of 60 odd degrees. If you put too much strain on that, it would pop open. The pole hose would just fall out the bottom of the pole. But with cold water, that's not a problem. I found that with hot water, I needed to change over to an aqua adapter hose, a PU style hose, and then that now works quite nicely. The other slight down point that I found with these brushes is that, again, with hot water, they do the bristles move around quite a bit, and although they will return to their shape eventually, I found that what was happening is some of the bristles were fouling the jets a little bit. So what I've done is I've just quite simply chopped out a few of the bristles. I'd still say that this brush, even when it's fouling the jets up, it still cleans much better than the previous generation, or the dual trim Superlight, which is much heavier. This cleans better than this, and yet the jets on this never fouled. Still, with those down points, I'd still say that it's well worth the money. If you're a hot water user, then just change over the pole hose to something that you know works. All in all, great pole. I'd recommend it.